Last night, while you were sleeping, something happened that you didn't authorize, didn't ask for, and can't undo. I know that sounds unsettling, but I need you to hear the rest of this before you react to it, because what heaven decided while you were unconscious is actually the thing you've been praying for without realizing it. Let's talk about sleep for a second because Scripture treats it very differently than we do. We think of sleep as downtime, the part of the day where nothing important happens. But some of the most significant turning points in the entire Bible happened specifically while someone was asleep, unaware, completely out of control of what was unfolding around them. Think about Jacob. Running from his brother, alone in the wilderness, nothing but a stone for a pillow, about as low and vulnerable as a person can be. And it's exactly there, in Genesis chapter 28, while he's sleeping, that heaven opens up. A stairway reaching to the sky, angels moving up and down it, and God speaking a promise over Jacob's life, land, descendants, presence, protection, all of it delivered while Jacob had absolutely no say in the matter. When he wakes up, he says, "Surely the Lord is in this place, and I was not aware of it." Read that last line again. I was not aware of it. The most important encounter of his life so far happened while he was completely unaware. Not because he earned it that day, not because he prayed the right prayer that night, but because heaven chose that exact moment to move regardless of what he was doing. That's the pattern I want you to notice. Some of what God does in your life has nothing to do with your awareness of it happening. Let's talk about why this matters for the season you're in right now. You've probably spent a long time believing your breakthrough depends entirely on your effort. Pray harder, work harder, believe harder, stay awake and vigilant every second or the blessing will slip past you. But Psalm 127 says it plainly, unless the Lord builds the house, the builders labor in vain, and it goes on to say that God grants sleep to those he loves. Not exhaustion, not anxious wakefulness, sleep, rest. Because some of what he's building doesn't require you to be conscious and straining the entire time. Think about that. The very posture we associate with losing control, with being unproductive, with wasting time, Scripture actually connects to being loved. He gives sleep to those he loves. Let's talk about Adam for a moment, because his story shows this same pattern from the very beginning of everything. Genesis chapter 2 says, God caused a deep sleep to fall on Adam, and while he was sleeping, God took a rib and formed Eve. Adam didn't participate in the most significant relational gift of his entire existence. He wasn't awake to negotiate it, wasn't conscious to shape it, wasn't even aware anything was happening. He simply woke up to a completed gift that heaven had finished while he was unconscious. That's worth sitting with tonight, especially if you've been exhausting yourself trying to manufacture something in your life through sheer force, a relationship, an opportunity, a breakthrough you feel like you have to personally engineer every detail of. Some gifts are formed while you're asleep, not while you're straining. Now let's talk about Solomon, because his story adds another layer to this. 1 Kings chapter 3 tells us that God appeared to Solomon in a dream at night and said, "Ask for whatever you want me to give you." And in that unconscious state, Solomon asked for wisdom instead of wealth or long life, and God was so pleased with the request that he gave Solomon wisdom beyond anyone before or after him and threw in the riches and honor he hadn't even asked for. Notice the sequencing again. The defining moment of Solomon's reign, the one that shaped an entire kingdom's golden era, happened while he was asleep. Not in a war room, not in a strategy meeting. In a dream, in the dark, completely outside of his conscious control. I want you to consider that whatever's forming in your life right now might be following the exact same pattern. Not in the moments you're gripping tightly and trying to control everything. In the quiet, unattended hours where you've had to let go simply because you had no choice. Let's talk about what actually happened while you were sleeping recently, in a spiritual sense, because I believe something real shifted. A door that's been stuck for a long time, in a relationship, a job situation, a financial pattern, quietly came unstuck, even if you can't see the evidence of that yet. Isaiah 45:2 says, "I will go before you and level the mountains. I will break down gates of bronze and cut through bars of iron." Notice it says, "I will go before you," meaning the clearing work happens ahead of your arrival, often while you're not watching, sometimes literally while you're asleep and unaware that anything is being cleared at all. Something that's been assigned against your peace lost its grip last night, even if you woke up still feeling some residue of the old anxiety. Feelings often take longer to catch up to spiritual reality than the reality itself takes to shift. Just because you still feel the old weight this morning doesn't mean the decision made on your behalf overnight wasn't real and permanent. Let's talk about Peter for a moment, because his rooftop experience in Acts chapter 10 shows something important about decisions that get made regardless of our initial resistance. While he was praying and fell into a trance, not quite asleep but definitely in an altered, unaware state, he received a vision that completely redefined who he thought was allowed to receive God's grace. He argued with the vision in the moment, resisted what he was seeing, said, "Surely not, Lord." And yet the vision repeated 3 times, because the decision being revealed to him wasn't up for negotiation. It was already settled. His job wasn't to approve it. His job was simply to catch up to what had already been decided. That might be exactly where you are right now. Something has already been decided about your life, your next season, your relationships, your calling, and your only role left is not to talk heaven out of it or to earn it after the fact, but simply to catch up to what's already true. Let's talk about the permanence of this, because that word in the title matters. Cannot be reversed. That's not an exaggeration. Numbers chapter 23 has a striking line. God is not human that he should lie, or a son of man that he should change his mind. Does he speak and then not act? Does he promise and not fulfill it? Whatever heaven settled while you were unaware of it isn't sitting in a state of maybe. It's finished in the way that matters most, even if the visible evidence in your circumstances is still catching up. I want you to think of it like a court ruling that's already been handed down, sealed, and filed, even though the paperwork announcing it publicly hasn't reached your hands yet. The decision isn't pending. The delivery is pending. That's a very different thing, and it changes how you wait. Let's talk about what to do with all of this practically, because I don't want to leave you with just a feeling and nothing to hold on to. Stop waiting for permission to believe something has shifted. You don't need visible proof before you're allowed to trust that the decision is real. Faith, by definition in Hebrews chapter 11, is being confident in what we hope for and assured about what we do not yet see. You are allowed to walk today as someone whose situation has already shifted internally, even while the external world hasn't caught up yet. Second, stop treating rest like it's the enemy of your breakthrough. If Psalm 127 is right, and God gives sleep to those he loves, then some of what you've been striving so hard to force into existence might actually need you to rest more, not strive harder. Consider that your exhaustion might be working against the very thing you're trying to build, and permission to actually rest might be part of tonight's decision too. Third, start speaking about your situation the way you would speak about something that's already settled, not something still hanging in uncertainty. Not, "I hope this works out eventually, but this has already shifted, and I'm simply walking forward into what's already true." Here's your assignment before you go to sleep again tonight. As you lay down, say this quietly: "Whatever needed to shift in my life has already shifted. Whatever needed to be decided has already been decided, and I don't have to stay awake and anxious to make sure it holds. I can rest, because what heaven settles doesn't require my supervision to stay settled." If this message reached you tonight, share it with someone else who's been exhausting themselves trying to force an outcome instead of trusting that some decisions get made while we're finally still enough to let them. Let them know that rest isn't giving up. Sometimes it's exactly when the most important things get finished. You were sleeping last night. unaware, unguarded, completely out of control of what was happening around you. And that, chosen one, was exactly when heaven chose to move.